Right, earlier we looked at finding the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range, and how we did that by hand, and I want to show you now a way to do that with Excel and or your scientific calculator to make it a lot easier. So in the notes we found the mean of these 10 numbers by adding them all up and dividing by 10. All right, I'm going to show you, if you have a scientific calculator, a Texas Instrument, a TI-80 series calculator, a way to get the average is to use what we call the statistics package, their statistics menu. So you hit stat. This is called the editor. All right, stat 1 is the editor, and this is my editor. I've got some data already in there. I'm going to clear that out by pressing, notice this right here, MEM. I'm going to hit second plus for the memory, and then right here it says clear all lists, option 4. I'm going to clear all my lists. It says done. Now when I go back to the stat editor, stat, enter, everything's cleared out. It's blank. Now I'm going to just put in these 10 numbers real quick. Okay, I've got those 10 numbers in, and now once they're in, I'm going to press stat. I'm going to come over to calculate, and then this first option, 1 bar stats, and then hit enter. All right, 1 bar stats. Now if you ever put them in a different list, remember there are list 1, list 2, there's 6 lists in these calculators. If you're ever in a different list, you can tell it, list 2 right here by pressing second 2. Or if it's in list 5, I can press second 5 and say, tell me the statistics for the numbers that are in list 5. Okay, but if it's in list 1, you could press second 1 and tell it it's listed in list 1. But if you leave that off, by default, it looks in list 1. All right, so the default 1 bar stats, if it's just blank, it's going to look in list 1, and that's where I have my data anyway. So I hit enter. There's my mean, 14.7. And also notice it gives me, this was the second page where I actually did the calculation, it gives me the sum of the x's. It gives me what the numerator is. Remember that numerator has that look, the sum of the x's. Alright, there it is, the sum of the x's. So 147. It also gives me the denominator there, the n equals 10. So n is 10. Alright, and it gives us that in the formula. But more importantly, there's the mean, 14.7. Okay. Now, it also, if you scroll down, it's got the little down arrow here. It also has median. There's the median of the data set. It has the min and the max. Okay, the min and the max are important. If you remember, that's important for the mid-range. Remember, the mid-range had the lowest plus the highest divided by 2. So once I look on here and I see, all right, the minimum is 9, the maximum is 40, I can add those together and divide by 2, and there's my mid-range. So I could compute that on that same screen, and I had the median on that same screen. The only thing I don't have initially with that first data set is the mode. So how could I get the mode? Well, underneath statistics again, stat, option 1 was our editor where we put the list in, but notice 2 and 3 are sorting, meaning that's taking it from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. So the sort A, the A means ascending from smallest to largest. Sort D means descending from largest to smallest. We want to go from smallest to largest, and then again it's got a little parentheses here. It's saying, what do you want me to sort? And I'm going to tell it to sort list 1, where I have my numbers. So sort list 1, and now the important thing about that is when it says done, when I go back into the list, list 1 is sorted for me. So the smallest all the way to the largest, if I go all the way down to the bottom. And what that allows me to do is count. I can now count easily that 9 occurred 3 times. All right, 11 occurred twice, so 9's in the lead. I'm out of data points, so 9 wins, so 9's the mode. So in that tiny little amount of time, I could find the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range, all with that one menu. The stat menu. The stat editor will give me access to put my numbers in. The sort feature, once I've got my numbers in, will sort it from smallest to largest for me, so I can easily see and keep count of what numbers occur the most. And then the calc feature, that will give me the 1 bar stats, and 1 bar stats will give me the mean and the median. The the mid-range and the mode are not there, but they give you enough information to calculate the mid-range in the 1-var stats. And then again, the mode, you would just have to find what the sorting and just count it, keep an account. So 1-var stats is a very, very useful tool if you have a TI series calculator. All right, now if you don't, Excel has some built-in features that'll do virtually all these things, the same thing that we were doing before. Let me give you an idea here how this will work with Excel. So I've got that same data set here that I put into my calculator. With Excel, it's even easier. Let me move this over so we can see. Excel, it's even easier than it was with the calculator to find the mean. You just highlight the data, and then over here where you see your sum symbol, you just drop it down and click average. Right, and there's the 14.7. Now you could also, I could also copy and paste this. I just want you to see the other methods of finding the mean. Nothing's going to be easier than just using the average command. But you could also highlight all the data. If you just click this, and don't click the down arrow, you just click this, that adds them together, 147. And then either right beside it or right below it or just wherever you choose, you can type in equals. You can click this, 147, and then divide by, and then you can either count it by hand, count that there's 10 there, and get 14.7 like we got before. But you can also, another thing you can do, another cool little trick is, so you don't have to count it, is equals, and then just type in, or sorry, click 147, click the sum first, and then divide by, and then this is a cool little feature with Excel. You can type in count. Right, and it just counts how many cells in a range. So count, and then just slide them all together like that, and then enter. So it counted how many cells were right, how many numbers we just had in that cell, and then also took the C11, and C11 we had the sum. Right, we clicked that sum formula. So both of those are neat little ways, but again, equals, average, and you can just literally type in. And delete this so you can see that as well. You can literally type in equals and start typing average and not have to use the sum command. And then you just double click where it says average, highlight all your data, and enter. Right, and it can do it that way. So that's how we find the mean of a data set. Now I would just type beside it mean. Now right below it, to get the median, type equals, and then start typing median. Right. Median is a function in Excel, and highlight all your data again, enter. So the median was 11, just like we got on the TI calculator. Now the mode, it's just the maximum of all the counts. There is a command in Excel for a mode. If you start typing in mode, mode, multi-mode, single. Multi, it says it'll find the most frequently occurring or repetitive values, plural, but I just never get it to work if there's more than one mode. I don't know if there's something I'm doing wrong. You can let me know in the comments if you know of a way to get it to find more than one, but like when I highlight all of this data, the same data set we did for the mean and the median, it'll tell me that the mode is 9. But if I take that out, and let's say I stick in another 11 in here, notice the mean and the median will change. Well, the median won't because we didn't change what the median was. But now there's two modes. There's an 11 and there's a 9. So if I type in equals mode multi, and I highlight all the data, now there should be a 9 and an 11. But it only returns 1. It doesn't return both of them. And I'm not sure why it does that. I don't know why it doesn't give me both modes. So if there's only a single mode, the mode feature works great. But if there's more than one mode, it doesn't handle that very well. It doesn't handle it well at all, from what I know about it. Okay, but for the one that we did here, and if single was just the one most frequently occurring thing. So if I click single mode, it's giving me the 9. And the same thing if I tried to do that with an extra number in there. See, again, it only gives me the one that most, I guess like the first time of it. that occurred going from top to bottom. I'm not 100% sure what happens there for why that does that. But anyway, it can find a single mode. To my knowledge, it can't find more than one mode. All right, and then the mid-range. What you have to do for mid-range is a little bit tricky, but for mid-range you would have to do the formula basically like we saw it in the notes is equals, and then you can tell it. You got to do a parentheses because we have to add and divide. But you can do minimum. So min is the smallest number in a data set. So minimum of all these numbers, right? Close that parentheses, plus, and then max of all these numbers, right? And the same thing, highlight all your data, close that parentheses, right? That closed this one. We need another one to close our original, and then all that divided by 2. There's our mid-range. Alright, and again you see the mean is pulled up from the median, so there's definite skewness. When all these values are different and even drastically different in cases, it shows that the data set is not symmetric. We do not have symmetric data by any means here. Okay, we're way more far away from the median on one side than we are the other, and that's screwing up these 4 values. When we have nice bell-shaped data that we talked about in the last video, data whose histogram would look like a bell curve, then all 4 of these values are typically the same. They're almost equal. They're very close to one another. But when we have skewness, when we have one value that's much further away from the others, then we start to see these things start to disperse and start to not hone in on one another. Alright, and then the mean from a frequency distribution. If you're doing this by hand, we saw that it's very time consuming and it can be a very tedious problem to do all this. Remember, we multiply the 2 columns left to right over here in the 3rd column, and then we add everything in that 3rd column, and then finally divide by the sum of all the numbers in the 2nd column. So it's a very tedious process, but Excel handles this very, very, very easily. And this may be another thing that you want to have your own sheet for. Like you could press plus down here. You could call this like mean median sheet, but you'd have to change it depending on how many data set points there are. Same thing here. You'd have to have, you'd have to change this for how big the distribution is. But you could have a sheet here and make yourself little instructions over on the side. But I'm going to call one column X, one column F, and then X times F. Okay, just like we saw before. And I'm going to put all these numbers in here real quick. Okay, so these are the numbers just from the frequency distribution. This column wasn't there originally. We originally had just those 2. So you could get this just from the frequency distribution itself. But this 3rd column here, I just want to do this side by side so you can see that I'm going to get the same things. What I'm going to do is, in the 3rd column, the X times F, I'm literally going to multiply these things together. So I'm going to click equals, and then I'm going to click the first X value, 0, times the first F value, 2. So this times this, just like we did here, 0 times 2. I hit enter, I get that same 0. More importantly, in that cell I've got a formula. Equals A2 times B2, equals these 2 cells together. If I drag down, it's going to multiply A3 times B3, A4 times B4, A5 times B5. It's going to do whatever it did in this cell all the way down, because when you drag, it just drags these numbers down. So 2 that goes to 3, to 4, to 5, to 6, to 7, all the way down. And notice we got the exact same numbers, right? And now what do we need to do? Remember, we end up with, I said that this is the sum of X times F, this column, and the N is the sum of this column. So we can do the sums like we talked about in the previous problem with this feature right here. So I can just click sum, and then I can highlight this data set and click sum. And then the last thing, what do? I divide this divided by that. So out here to the side, I'm going to type equals this, the top thing, divided by this, the bottom, and enter. And so I get that 6.456. We got about 6.46 when we did it before in our notes. And that's where it's coming from. Again, if it tells you to round, remember you can use the round feature. Equals round this thing How many places do you want to round to? That's 2 places. So there's where their 6.46 is coming from. Alright, but just use the equal command. If the equal command is not there, it's not going to work. But equals, and then start clicking cells. This times this. And then enter. And then you just drag everything down. Another thing you can do instead of drag down is once you've got a command in there, if it's already stuff in this cell, you can just double click and it'll auto populate, right, all the way down to where that 14 was. So either click and drag or double click the little green square in the bottom right corner, and that will carry that formula pattern all the way through down to the very last place where you tell it to stop.